Welcome to Faith and Freedom. For the next few minutes, we hope to inform, inspire, and encourage you as we discuss the legal victories and challenges to your fundamental freedoms and religious liberties. Faith and Freedom comes to you from Liberty Counsel, a civil liberties education and legal defense organization. Join us now as Matt Staver, the President and General Counsel of Liberty Counsel, explains the latest legal issues all across this country in the courtrooms of America. Liberty Counsel is winning the battle for your constitutional freedoms.
Military readiness is under attack. Hi, I'm Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel and dean of Liberty University School of Law. One of my guests today, a very special friend, is Elaine Donnelley. She is the head of the Center for Military Readiness, and she has been on the front lines of defending the military and making sure that they are ready and fit to do the job that they have been intended to do, give us protection and security both domestically and abroad. But one of the things that is happening right now is a huge threat to military readiness, and it is the attempted repeal of the law that bans homosexual activity, open homosexual activity from the military. Welcome, Elaine, to Faith and Freedom.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Elaine, you've been leading a charge and a coalition of a lot of organizations to voice their opinions and those of their constituents with regards to this issue. Tell us about why this is important and what's at stake.
Well, the armed forces are so important to our freedom, but the President of the United States has made a campaign promise that would harm the military, the only military we have. The month of June, LGBT month, according to the President of the United States, is supposed to provide a push for legislation to repeal the 1993 law regarding homosexuals in the military, a law that, well, was passed with overwhelming bipartisan majorities in 1993. The courts have upheld it as constitutional several times, and yet this president is determined to impose the LGBT, that means lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender agenda on the armed forces of the United States. Now, we're at a critical point now because the House of Representatives, unfortunately, on May 27, passed legislation to repeal the law and give the Obama administration the opportunity to impose this very radical agenda on the armed forces. On the same day, a Senate committee, the Senate Armed Services Committee, passed similar permissive legislation. We call it the repeal deal because the deal is that implementation would not occur until sometime later, after the election, notably, and after the administration, quote, certifies, unquote, that no bad effects will occur. Well, this is really absurd because we know where the administration is going. For members of Congress to think that, well, it's okay to let the administration decide, that's an abdication of their responsibility for oversight for our military. The proposed legislation, whether it is put in place by law or by implementing regulations at the Pentagon, would be quite extreme. We're talking about a mandate that would say the military would have to accept homosexuals or bisexuals, whether real or perceived. That very open-ended language likely would include transgenders and other sexual minorities who want access to the military, even though there is no constitutional right to be in the armed forces. The effect of it would be very similar to what would happen if the military just said, well, henceforth, men will live with and share the private quarters with women in the military, and we're going to certify that there won't be any harmful effects for good order, discipline, morale, and the like. That is an unrealistic proposition. It is something that members of Congress should think about before they vote for this. But it could become law very quickly in the month of July unless the filibuster that Senator John McCain is going to lead is successful and stops this legislation from being rushed on through.
What can people do right now that are listening to this program? How can they respond to make sure that this is stopped?
Well, every member of the Senate will have the opportunity to vote, but first there will be an attempt to filibuster this bill. It's in the defense authorization bill, not an appropriation bill, by the way. This is an authorization bill. If it doesn't pass, the good things in it can be passed in other ways. So when Senator John McCain stands up and filibusters a defense bill, you know there have to be very serious reasons for doing that. So every constituent, especially during the July 4th break, should tell their senators, you need to support Senator John McCain on this. There's another reason as well. In the same defense authorization bill, there is language in there to authorize abortions on military hospitals and not just overseas, at domestic bases. Military facilities could be used for abortions. This would be a radical change in policy, very offensive to many Americans. That's another good reason to filibuster the defense bill and defeat it.
Now, filibustering the bill will ultimately filibuster both the abortion provision and the repeal of the provision regarding homosexuality.
Yes, the entire bill has to be filibustered. It's the only way, because according to the rules of the Senate, you can't have a motion to strike this amendment or that amendment, this part of the bill or another that you don't like, because that requires 60 votes. We don't have 60 votes. The Republicans do not have 60 votes. But they do have a possibility of getting 41 votes. All they have to do is stop the Democratic Majority Leader, Harry Reid, from getting the 60 votes that he needs to shut down the filibuster.
So time is of the essence. So what people listening need to do is contact both of their senators and ask them to support John McCain's filibuster of the defense authorization bill. You can
That's exactly the message.
And you can go to your website. Give us your website for those that are interested in more information.